In the meantime, we have to go out to Hollywood. Is it really Hollywood? They're calling it a woke explosion. Now, you may think this doesn't affect you, and in a way it doesn't. I mean, we watch basically TV shows and movies are just becoming a lot crummier, okay? We can all see it. And some of the classics that I like could never be made right now. And here are some of the ones that I like. Kramer versus Kramer. People talking on camera. What's the problem with that? Too many white people, not enough people of color. How about Rocky? Who does not like Rocky? The problem with this movie, I'm told, they made the bad guy the black guy, although Carl Weathers as Apollo Creed was absolutely awesome, a magnificent performance. How about The Verdict with Paul Newman, another one that I liked. These are movies that could never get made today. And virtually anything that Alfred Hitchcock was involved in, he didn't care about gender issues, really transgender. It was just not, he just cared about great stories. Great stories. But now, after 2 years of Black Lives Matter, Antifa, racial and social justice, and all of this nonsense, and so much of it is nonsense, because they got previously normal people to talk like this.
To fix the mess that white people have made. Look, I look at it this way. I'm a white man. I've got a lot of privilege in the room.
What kind of weird, creepy white guy party is this?
This is a Democratic Party that needs to go younger and more diverse. So naturally, the old white guy is the front runner.
He's just a white guy. He doesn't matter.
You don't get to mansplain right now, Mark.
And I'm the white guy in the panel to say that, so I'll shut up now.
We have stood by to see mediocre, mealy-mouthed, snowflake white men who are incapable of taking critique.
And such a fantastic selection of diverse candidates. We're going to go to the white guy in-house.
You did it wrong.
Of course I did.
Do that with
I'm a white
rhythm,
guy from Queens.
It's the ultimate virtue signal. It feels really good to say something like that when you're on a panel on TV, putting down a group or putting yourself down. I'm so secure in my power, I can point to this and say it's not a limitation. I mean, it should be, but here I am. It's a terrible thing to say, and it has a real world effect on real people. People from cafeteria workers to people who work in Hollywood, producers, writers, directors, actors, stagehands, you name it, they are on the run. Fascinating news story in the UK Daily Mail says the woke revolution that has driven out white men. This is real. This is happening in every industry, especially in Hollywood. So the whole key in Hollywood right now, after 2 years of Black Lives Matter, BIPOC. You got to be BIPOC. What is BIPOC? Black, Indigenous, and people of color. You got to have that angle. And if you don't, you are out of luck. Now, what does this mean? People are going to be looking at the outside, not on the inside, and ultimately, the quality of the content, the stories will decline. Now, right now, Ava DuVernay is the queen of Hollywood. She happens to be a woman, she happens to be a person of color, and she happens to be a pretty mediocre filmmaker. There. Yes, it's true. You're allowed to criticize Ava DuVernay, okay? And I know this personally because, well, I sat through When They See Us. You ever hear about that? It's a mini-series that was on Netflix about 2 years ago about the Central Park Five, the Central Park jogger case. Do you remember that? 5 men were convicted of assaulting this woman. And oh, by the way, yes, they happened to be guilty. That conviction of theirs was vacated. But people who talk about this case know nothing about the case. And they have maligned the prosecutor, the prosecutors who were involved, good people who followed the law. And by the way, these guys confessed. And these weren't false confessions. Anybody who says that hasn't sat through and actually watched. They don't know the first thing they're talking about. Anyway, there's that. It also happens to be a crummy movie. What is happening in Hollywood? The embracing of anything that is black, indigenous, person of color, and the rejection, seemingly, of anything that is Jewish. Now, the Academy of Motion Pictures and Arts and Sciences, those who run the Oscars, they just set up a new museum. It's $500 million. It's quite a facility. And when they opened it, guess what? They had a Native American contingent, and they came by to apologize for the land that had been taken from the Native Americans and all that stuff. And anyway, this big museum, And you know what it overlooked? The Jews who created Hollywood. Meyer, Goldwyn, the list goes on and on. These innovative, gifted, talented, gutsy men went to Hollywood and created a multi-trillion-dollar industry that has entertained an entire world for about 120 years. And not one word about these men in that museum. Now, I'm told it's going to be fixed, but it's awfully late. Isn't it interesting that this, essentially, anti-Semitism is out there and it's real, just as the Squad, they make a spectacle of themselves all the time. Their anti-Semitism is legendary at this point. Their power is substantial. Even Joe Biden listens to this crew. And as far as this ridiculous conversation about race that we're having in America, Joe Biden is totally on board as his administration tanks.
I challenge you, find today, when you turn on the stations, sit on one station for 2 hours, and I don't know how many commercials you'll see. Lay 8 to 5. 2 to 3 out of 5 have mixed race couples in them. That's not by accident. They're selling soap, man.
So that kind of ridiculous virtue signaling in the commercials and in the TV shows and in the movies and in the shows is Joe Biden. Again, real world people are paying a price for this high level virtue signaling, and it's really a shame. So many people these days are afraid of the mob, and you know what they do? They try to outwoke the mob. They join the mob so the mob never comes for them. So some people who are in that mob are guilty themselves of something, and they just don't want to be caught. You know who Asia Argento is? I wasn't too familiar with her either, but she went to Cannes and made a big spectacle out of herself, accusing everybody in the room of bad stuff.
I want to make a prediction. Harvey Weinstein will never be welcomed here ever again. He will live in disgrace, shunned by a film community that once embraced him and covered up for his crimes. And even tonight, sitting among you, there are those who still have to be held accountable for their conduct against women, for a behavior that does not belong in this industry, does not belong in any industry or workplace. You know who you are, but most importantly, we know who you are. And we're not going to allow you to get away with it any longer.
I'm not going to argue about Harvey Weinstein. That guy is where he belongs, in prison, it seems. But interesting, her accusatory tone about everybody else just sitting there. And look what came out about Asia Argento not too long after. She herself accused of sexually assaulting a 17-year-old boy. When you go woke, you do really become deranged, as President Trump said. A new software update for Microsoft Word, the most ubiquitous word processing program in the universe, right? Look how it was unveiled.
Ignite. We've got a big day ahead and lots in store for you. First, we want to acknowledge that the land where the Microsoft campus is situated was traditionally occupied by the Sammamish, the Duwamish, the Snoqualmie, the Suquamish, the Muckleshoot, the Snohomish, the Tulalip, and other Coast Salish peoples since time immemorial. A people that are still here, continuing to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. My name is Allison Wines. I'm a senior program manager in our developer tools division. I'm an Asian and white female with dark brown hair wearing a red sleeveless top.
I'm Greg Kelly. I'm a white male. I'm wearing a green tie. And my favorite show growing up was F Troop. So I'm really not fitting in with any of this talk. I have no idea what Indian tribe owned this chunk of Manhattan that I'm sitting on right now, but think that the Dutch paid for it. This absurdity is really kind of laughable. And Microsoft and nobody else really, they're overcorrecting and they're doing it too fast. Now, in their new Word program, by the way, they are trying to take words out of circulation. Words matter, I'm told all the time, right? Words matter. Well, if you write the word manpower in a document that you're writing in your home or office, Microsoft is going to tap you on the shoulder with a little purple line and tell you that that word is potentially inappropriate and give you other words like workforce. What else we got there? Power, labor. If you write homosexual, well, that could be offensive to somebody as well. They're going to suggest gay person or something else. Let's see. Mistress. What's wrong with that word? You will be warned that it's a gender-neutral term, hero, could be more inclusive here. A gender-neutral term could be more inclusive, like lover. I mean, don't you want them to stay out of it? Again, if you're writing at home, they're going to send you these warnings. It's one thing if you misspell a word. Postman doesn't. All right, when's the last time anybody saw a female male person? I'm sorry. I know they exist, but showgirl, is that on the list? Yes, it is. You should use the word dancer, performer, performing artist, and blacklisted. They're blacklisting everybody in Hollywood, but they don't want you using that word. You could use block, banned, blacklisted. This is Microsoft in 2022 getting into your head and trying to tell you what words you can and cannot use. This is wrong, but again, it's too fast. They're faking it. This is what Microsoft really is. In 1995, they came out with, Windows 95. And the hottest show at the time was Friends. Remember that? All-white cast. Nobody seemed to have a problem with it. It was a pretty good show. So they got the biggest stars in the world to do their promotional, instructional Microsoft Windows video.
Your food's here. You're saved. Look at our menu. Column A always complements column B. Protein on the right, carbs on the left.
Wow, Jennifer Aniston and Matthew Perry 27 years ago. Lots of problems here. They didn't thank the Indians. I think we see some cultural appropriation going on. They appear to have a white guy playing the role of an Asian male. Look, I'm not saying this is not lame, but there's got to be a happy medium between this stuff and what we saw today from the white Asian lady with the sleeveless red shirt, right? I mean, come on.